Hello and welcome everyone. I am Anju, VP AI at Innominds. I will be your host and moderator for this exciting session on women shaping the future of AI and technology. Before we start, let me shed some light on why is it even important for us to have a discussion like this. We're hearing so much about AI revolutionizing industries, economies, the way we live, work, and by 2025, AI is projected to contribute 15.7 trillion to the global economy. But the real question we must ask, who is shaping this AI and who is it really serving? Despite AI's rapid progress, we continue to see gender, racial, and socioeconomic biases embedded in the very systems that are supposed to power our future. These aren't just technical flaws, they are ethical failures with real world consequences. And this is why diversity in AI is not just a moral imperative, it's a business, technological, and societal necessity. Today, we bring together some of the brightest minds in AI and technology, leaders who are working to make AI more ethical, inclusive, and responsible. Throughout this session, we'll explore the challenges, opportunities, and strategies that will shape a more equitable future. It is now my pleasure to introduce you all to this lovely panel that we have today. I'll start with Jessica. Jessica is managing partner Amata Capital and MacArthur Holding Company, an accomplished innovator, executive, and board member. She took her last software company public on NASDAQ, executed an M&A roll-up, and subsequently sold it to a strategic buyer. Today, she serves on two public company boards and works on the capital market side. Next on board, we have Jayashree Rajendran, currently serving as a senior director with Web Properties team in California. She brings over 18 years of experience with NASDAQ. Her primary interest lies in web technologies and AI. Beyond her professional pursuit, she is deeply committed to diversity inclusion and is now leading the Women Technology Initiative at NASDAQ Group. Next, with us, we have Manisha Shah, currently serving as the CEO of Active Surgical, a startup that provides visual insights and information on surgeons in real time. Prior to this, Manisha architected the gynecology unit group at Olympus US, ultimately serving as GM and Global VP. She comes with over 2 decades of experience in the healthcare space. Next, we have with us Sneha Murli, with a strong background in semiconductors and AI. Sneha is currently driving MedTech partner ecosystem at NVIDIA. She has 10 plus years of experience in this field and has worked with companies like Qualcomm and Microchip in the past. Then we have Dr. Shweta Sarkar, and a leading AI researcher and educator. Dr. Shweta is currently serving as Senior Associate Dean at San Diego State University. She has over 120 research publications and has contributed to 100 million in federal grants. She leads the Wireless Networks and Communications Lab, mentoring global scholars. Thank you everyone for coming here and doing this with us and being part of the initiative that we're trying to run. Now, without any further ado, let's deep dive into into this with our panelists and understand more on how biases may change the technology that we're building and how some of us are trying to understand this in our respective the roles and companies that we're working with. So Jessica, I'll start with you. Investors play a critical role in shaping the future of any technology. In this case, let's talk about AI. And why I say so, because they play a crucial role in deciding which startups get funding and which don't. While studies have shown that diverse teams build AI solutions that serve a wider audience, startups generally struggle with diversity at leadership levels. Now, from an investor's perspective, how do you see this influencing the ethical development of any AI startup?
Gosh, right to the hard questions, Anju. Thank you for having me today, and just pleased to be here with such a impressive panel of other panelists here today. So from the investor lens, there's a few things that I think are critical. One, you do need diverse teams building the technology. And I think the way to think about it is the more that it appeals to a diverse audience, actually, the more revenue this is going to produce. And so, if we can always start with the financial side of things, with hey, actually, and because this is a panel specifically about women shaping the future of AI and technology, women are the largest economic buying force in the world. And if we don't have women and female representation building these products, you're actually missing out on that huge economic opportunity. So I think the way to do it is to flip the lens from the investment point of view and say, hey, this is actually good for business. This is good for ROI. And look for teams that recognize that and are incorporating those perspectives into their product development roadmap.
Great. And are there any real world examples that you've seen very closely where something like this was implemented, or uh, I mean, that probably you would like to talk about?
So I think that there's a continuing struggle with women in technology, to be very frank. The numbers are not actually improving. So the sad truth is that there is a lower percentage of women in technology today than 25 years ago when I started my career. And because of that, it can be hard to have enough representation. And so then the way to address that, if you can't get the numbers that you need in the teams that are building the technology, is to ensure that you've got a really good either client or customer advisory board that the product teams are interacting with regularly, that is diverse, in order to check their roadmap, check their assumptions and what they're building. And there are lots of companies that do this well. Sadly, it's done just a little bit more effectively, often with B2B solutions than it is with B2C. And I think that's just the sheer number of people with whom the product teams need to interact. And so my challenge would be for AI companies that are building B2C is to really think about these focus groups, these customer client advisory boards, and to ensure that there's a pool of diverse representation in order to understand when you're building these products, whether they're going to be appealing to a broad base of potential buyers, because ultimately products are created to be sold and make money.
I agree, 100%. Now, staying onto the financial industry for a while and moving on to you, Jayashree. We are seeing AI being increasingly used in trading, fraud detection, financial analytics. But on the other side, there are also cases where, let's say, AI-driven lending models disadvantage a certain demographics or a certain set of people, or let's say fraud detection systems flag transactions from specific communities. How can one ensure that the systems that we are building are fair and do not reinforce biases that would disadvantage certain groups?
Yep. All right. Thanks, first of all, for the Innominds team to have me here, and really excited to be part of this panel. Okay, coming to your question, Anju. Yes, we know, right? AI is already a bigger part of our financial systems. It's helping us with trading, spotting frauds, analyzing data, whatnot. So we have a much sophisticated system than what we had in the past, but it is very important for us to ask ourselves, are these systems built in a fair manner? The thing is, AI is built on the historical data. if the data reflects past inequalities, which means that the AI system built on top of this might have those trend forward also, right? So here are a few things I would think of which is important. Transparency is the first one which comes to mind, right? So all of this AI systems built for financial industry needs to be regularly audited and fixed for any biases. And more importantly, we need data which represents everyone. For example, if we don't understand the full picture of women's financial behavior, then the decisions which are made by AI won't serve us well. Let's not forget the important element here, the human, right? So AI is here to support human in the decision making and not replacing, especially when it comes to the high sensitive area like flagging a fraud, approving a credit limit, where any kind of wrong decisions can hinder any of the outcomes, right? So what are we talking here? We need more women at every level, be it regulators, data scientists, decision makers, and everybody. So if we want the AI to work for us, we need to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely bang on. Manisha, now coming to you, you've already made future a reality, right? Where we're talking about AI assisting surgeons in real time. While this reduces human errors and can predict complications before they occur, uh, it and with AI being more deeply embedded into surgical procedures, what ethical guidelines you think healthcare companies should follow to ensure these systems or models are unbiased or, let's say, are transparent and trustworthy?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So first, I also want to thank Innominds for the invitation to join the panel and honored to be a part of this very impressive group of women. So I think this ethics in healthcare is a really important topic because the idea of AI helping for better, faster diagnosing, treatment, or even prevention of disease is great, and it's a great use of technology, but we want to ensure that it is accessible and applicable to all patients. And this idea of bias, I think, is really critical to address. With AI in healthcare, very important, like in the financial sector, to have a level of transparency and explainability. We need to understand how the model is working, how it's making its decisions. In healthcare, one aspect that is unique is data privacy. So we need very large data sets to build these models, and we need to ensure that the data is clear of any patient identifying information. This is a big issue overall in healthcare. So we have to ensure as a company that any data that we get access to has been clean before we remove it from the hospital. And then I think very analogous to drug development, we need to ensure that the AI is rigorously tested and validated, and we ensure that it is really working the way we expect it. And then I think also, Jayshree mentioned this, there needs to be a level of human oversight. So there really is no intention for AI to be fully autonomous in surgery or in providing care for patients. There's always going to be a level of human interaction to ensure that, there's human decision making as part of the AI.
Absolutely. And now again, sticking on to healthcare for a while, Sneha, coming to you. We already seeing a lot of AI's potential in healthcare from, let's say, early disease detection perspectives or personalized treatment plans. But we're also seeing real world cases where AI models misdiagnose certain groups at higher rates due to biased training data. And a lot of these questions, if you see industry after industries, they feel repetitive, and that is why these discussions become so important for us to have. So in your opinion, what do you think companies should do to ensure fairness and accuracy in these systems?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Anju. By the way, I'm really happy to be here with like such amazing, inspiring women with impressive track records. Couldn't be happier doing this for Innominds. I've had a long partnership with Innominds, so glad to be here. Going to your, I guess, disease diagnosis, I think that's the crux or the reason why healthcare, exists today. I'll walk you through a story that actually is very personal to me. So back in 2018, I went through a very intensive medical treatment. And that's when I understood the power of precision medicine. And really trying to address the gaps today, about making it inclusive, like you said, right? So, back in 2018, I had to choose between two protocols, which one was designed for the elderly and the other was designed for pediatrics. Okay. And I was a young adult, and there was no protocol designed for that young adult age group, right? So I went looking for data because that's what we all do, right? We all are data driven. We want to make intelligent decisions. So I almost found nothing. And I finally found one paper with 12 data points, 12 people, and about two of them close to my age group, just two data points close to my age group. And that was my decision making point. So, what I'm trying to say is that, you know, data is neither good or bad, right? Data is just crucial. And we humans sometimes actually can be biased, with emotions and, all of the other human aspects, which is also important. But computers give us the infinite power to process data. And
Yes.
the experience kind of made it very clear if healthcare AI is going to work for everyone, it needs to be built on balanced data sets. So one that covers all demographics, and in my case, all ages, different life stages, all of that. And companies, are pushing to ensure that AI, is trained and reflects on real world diversity of patients.
Yes.
And if AI overlooks people, it isn't really a technical flaw anymore. It becomes a human cost, right? So I would just say that, disease diagnosis is becoming more precise, which is a path that we really need to go. And, if the goal is inclusivity, it's not really a goal, it's a necessity. So I'd leave you with that thought.
That's a powerful thought, Sneha. And when you've gone through a personal journey like this, you know, you really understand this deep down as to how important it is to have, a reference point from everyone in the communities. While, before I move on to Shweta, you just picked up a very great point, like lack of data in so many forms, that there are new technologies that are coming in form of, let's say, synthetic data and other things that can bridge this gap. But I'm sure, even with that data, it is very, very important to see whether every group or every community is equally represented. Even if it's not equal in numbers, at least should have a significant, data sets for everyone for a more equitable future. Now coming to you, Shweta, and a very unique background from all of us, right? You're working in universities, and universities are not just teaching AI, they're shaping the next generation of AI professionals who will build the systems that impact billions of lives. And in that, academia always has been playing a crucial role in shaping the future. So how do you see universities contributing to responsible AI, both in research and in preparing students to tackle bias and ethical challenges?
Thank you, Anju. That's a great question. And thank you for inviting me on the panel. As everybody said, I want to echo this sentiment that I feel honored to be amongst all of you wonderful women. So, I want to share a unique perspective. So I come from the College of Engineering, and there has been a lot of discussion about use of AI on the university campus. Recently, our CIO made ChatGPT 4.0 available to all faculty, students, staff, free of cost, normally for $20 subscription per month, right? That decision had different repercussion and different criticism from different colleges. The sustainability folks were very concerned about the sustainability aspect of AI. College of Arts and Letters had issues with now essays would just be a product of ChatGPT writing, whereas engineering was unfazed. They believed that you need to understand technology, be a good programmer in order to develop the next generation of AI. So AI, even if it's writing code for you, you wouldn't be able to survive in your career if you don't know what you're doing and if you're not picking up the right skill set in school. You will fail at a job interview because you will not have a chat GPT to produce code instantly in an in-person interview. So engineering couldn't care less. Bring on as many chat GPTs as you want. So I think and then we had a digital humanities group, and it is, the digital humanities department at San Diego State University is highly renowned. It's a very few that we have in the country. They have introduced a whole area called ethical operating systems. So to kind of address your question, so they are training the next generation of non-technical AI users to understand and use AI ethically, also to influence the engineers who build AI, make them aware of the need for the ethical use of AI. And to give you an example, one of the leading search engines we have in the world today, a few years back, if you typed in images of African-American women, pictures of gorillas would show up. And that was not taken well by the entire community. And people had to go revisit the data set that several of us have talked about here, the data set, the training model, and shaping AI, again, ethically, just so that things like this doesn't happen. So what I wanted to kind of give an idea and a perspective on is academia today. Academia is diverse, right? And it's not just engineering. So it's the non-engineering fields as well. So I think every department, every college, in every university is doing their bit in training the next generation of scientists and researchers and engineers who will be developing AI, but also training the non-engineers in the right use of AI. The approaches taken are different, but I think the awareness is very, very much there.
Yes, and I know some of these examples, and now as we move forward, I will talk about some of these too. Now, I really want to bring everyone's attention, and especially our audience, on something really crucial. How, for example, diversity or the lack of it directly can impact the data and in training of these AI models. When certain groups are underrepresented, AI systems inherit those gaps, leading to biased outcomes that affect real people. And let me share a few examples, and I'm reading these out now. In 2023, a study by University of Somalia found that AI-generated content associated strong leadership with men while depicting women as emotional and ineffective, completely excluding women leaders unless explicitly prompted. In 2024, Google's AI chatbot Gemini faced backlash for generating racially inaccurate images, underrepresenting a certain section of individuals and distorting historical depictions, showing how bias in training data can directly shape what we see. Back in 2018, Amazon had to scrap its AI hiring tool because it was biased against women. The system trained on past hiring data learned to prefer male candidates for technical roles. Since the industry had historically seen those, more men in these roles than women. And you can never think that something as small as your recruitment portals or ATS not being able to pick up women because they've seen more men passing through these roles. Now, Now, while we know that data proves, and even the data proves that diversity in teams can reduce bias in AI models, but women and minorities are still underrepresented in a lot of our AI roles and technology in general. Uh, what steps should companies take to actively promote diversity in AI and tech leadership? Now, I will still, I know I'm a moderator, but I still want to probably speak on behalf of Innominds. Uh, I have seen this changing, Innominds is really leading, in this space from a perspective that our chief people officer Lakshmi, who I also see on this call, and I'm new to Innominds, and that's why probably I'm still able to talk about an external, I'm able to give an external perspective. Every room that I've entered into with her, right, she's always had very, she's always been very open of this fact that we need more and more women in the room, and she ensures that some of these priorities are discussed in every room that she enters. So thanks, Lakshmi, for doing that in Innominds. And now I'll come to each one of you to understand, what are, what is happening that you see very closely, which can probably impact some of these systems. Maybe, Jayashree, I'll start with you.
Yep, sure. Thanks, Anju. Yeah, I mean, diversity and in AI teams, it's not only making the tech world fairer, but also it sparks more creativity, right? Like when you have more women and minorities who are underrepresented, but we still have challenges. We still see that these groups are underrepresented in everywhere we see. So, from the NASDAQ standpoint, our CEO had announced, I would like to bring in a 50-50 diversity, right? Only in terms of gender diversity. She said, okay, I want to see 50% of my workforce to be women, like a massive step forward in this diversity. And I definitely have some of my personal opinions how companies can actually improve this one. It starts with the hiring, of course, right? Like, so companies should start looking at their recruitment strategies, remove any unintentional biases from your job description, and then maybe partner with organizations who can reach out to this underrepresented group and put in a diverse interview panel. These are some of the measures. It's just for opening the door wider, but it's not going to be very easy if the companies are not thinking about their pipelines. Like, how are they going to get this group into their company? Investing in internships, scholarships, outreach programs, and I see a lot out there as being part of this Women in Tech for NASDAQ. I work with some of these organizations who are trying to bring in AI for everybody, right? So there are organizations already trying to build such a pipeline. So if we spark interest in this tech among when we have this woman and minority group, we are setting the stage for the future. So pipeline, setting the pipeline is very important. And hiring is just a beginning. Companies should look at bringing in a culture like how we are looking at from NASDAQ's perspective, right? Every company should bring in a culture where they can bring in a feeling that everyone is belonging. A lot of initiatives has to come in from there. And lastly, and for me, it is more important, leadership must walk the talk. If the leadership team shows a genuine support for diversity, it sends out a clear message for throughout the organization that every voice is important. So, yeah, here are my things that like rethink hiring, invest in the future talent, building the inclusive culture, and making sure leaders are on board. Companies can go way forward on this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sneha?
Yeah, I kind of figured that, I echo with everything Jayashree said. I think, she's spot on with a few points. But I think fundamentally, right, I think there are so many initiatives that we could ideate. But leading by example actually starts with the crux of it is a mindset shift. I think Jessica mentioned that, yeah, we need to do better, right? Like, can we just talk about reality for once? Like, every time I have actually entered a room, obviously like either I'm the only girl or I probably definitely am the minority, right? So I'm acknowledging that fact. And coming from that, I think to be able to prioritize inclusivity and equity, I think you need an intentional change. And again, going back to AI, right? It inherits the biases of its creators. And if we're the one creating it and we're
Yes.
biased, skewed, to 90% men, then the AI is only going to generate that, right? So
Yes.
I think at NVIDIA, it's very refreshing. And of course, I think you can echo with me, Anju, like I've been just here about 3 months, and Jensen has about 33 plus reportees, and it's super flat, right? So no matter who you are, you're heard, your opinions actually matter, and he reads and listens to everyone's top fives. Like the company wide, we have a top five thing. So it doesn't matter. And this is a culture that is so new to me because I've never really come in. There are some hierarchies, there are some gaps between leadership and where I'm at, growing as a new college grad, but this is super flat, and this is a unique, I think it's a starting point. But Jensen has about 33, and I think about 8 or 9 are women, which is good.
Mhm.
Needs
Yeah,
to
it is
get
good.
better, which is,
Yeah.
yeah, which it'll definitely get better. But I think we're definitely creating an environment where, inclusion drives innovation, but also moving forward, hiring, I think it goes back to, just hiring right. It starts with, having more, representation. Like you said, you need more women leaders. I have, a woman that runs my entire BU, Kimberly. We've got some impressive women around me that inspire me, motivate me. So I think we're leading the way, and very soon, I think, we'll see more numbers in leadership.
Awesome. Jessica.
Gosh, well, in the interest of adding something new to what has already been shared, there maybe just to share a couple of actionable steps that I've found to be helpful in leading companies that I've founded or in which I work. Uh, One, to help support inclusion, help support, and not, by the way, not only women, but in my experience, mostly women took advantage of this program who may have other responsibilities in their lives, their home lives. One thing that I did at my last company is we established a full-time 30-hour work week option for individual contributor positions. And so what we did is we offered full health insurance benefits, one employer, 75% pay, and 75% of the metrics of a full-time position. And
Wow.
we did have a couple of men take advantage of this, but mostly women took advantage of it who were balancing childcare responsibilities often and home lives. And what we found is that was a way to really include our women and to keep them in the workforce versus asking them to make a choice between a 80 or 100-hour work week or no hour work week. Most of them really did want to stay engaged and involved in the workforce.
Impressive. Manisha?
Great, thank you. Jessica, I love that example. So similarly, let me see if I can add some additional comments. I agree with everything that's been said so far. I do think, as women, minorities in leadership positions, it's really important that we lead by example. And oftentimes it's said women need to see other women in leadership positions in order to see themselves and the potential to get there. So as a leader, it's really important to create those opportunities to sponsor women, have them promote what they're doing and share their story. I also think it's important for women to encourage one another. There's a statistic that speaks to the fact that women will only apply for a job if they meet 100% of the requirements in the job description, whereas men will typically apply even if they don't meet the requirements because they have a level of confidence that they can grow into that position, and so they'll apply. And so I think I've throughout my career tried to encourage women to put themselves out there and try for a role even if they don't fully believe that they're ready. I think women often suffer from imposter syndrome, and it's important that we encourage each other and continue to support one another and build that confidence. Another thing that I've learned in my career, especially going through and hiring lots of people, is this idea of unconscious bias, where you are attracted to people who are similar to you. So maybe similar in gender, background, experience. So when you're hiring, it's very important to have a cross section of people in your organization who are part of that interview process, so that you're getting a well-rounded view of the candidates. And similarly, the candidate is also having the ability to see themselves in your company, so that they're attracted to the company to want to join. And then finally, as a leader at a company, it's important to have an inclusive work culture. You need to hold yourself accountable and look at your own track record of promotions, salary disparity, merit increases. How are your teams composed? All of those things, just to make sure you're actually, living up to those ideals.
Absolutely, 100%. And then moving to Shweta.
So I agree to everything that has been said, but I want to take a step back and share what we see in academia. So I completely agree that we need women in the workforce, etc., but the talent has to be developed. In the US, less than, I believe the last year's statistics was 23% of women have a PhD in computer science and engineering. So when you have that kind of pool to choose talent from, you cannot populate a room filled with women AI engineers, right? So it has to start way before what we are even talking about. It has to start at the elementary school level, where we empower our girl learners more towards STEM, more towards engineering, which I see a huge dearth of. I am at a university that's 127 years old. I was 18 years ago, when I was hired into the computer engineering department, I was their first female hire. I remained the single female faculty for 15 years till I served I chaired a search committee, and I was able to hire the second female faculty in my department just 3 to 4 years ago. So I understand and I completely agree with the gender parity, salary parity, giving women opportunities and chance, but those women need to exist. And when you don't have that women talent, our data set will always be biased. So from where I come from, I think that the training and the intervention needs to happen as early as an elementary school level, so that we are building a talent pool from where we can hire.
Yes. While we've been talking about some of these points, and then we've also listening about some of these in various forums, discussions. There are improvements, but with AI coming in play, I guess we'll have to fast track some of these discussions and the initiatives, I as to say. We had another panelist who could not join us with us today. I would like my team to play the video. She was kind enough to send the video that we can play on her behalf. Dinesh, Nikhil, can you guys play the video, please? Or if you guys want to do, okay, yeah, we're doing that. We can play.
Hi, this is Asha Saxena calling in from Philadelphia. I would call myself an author, a speaker, an entrepreneur, a professor, but most importantly, I'm a computer engineer. I started my journey 32 years back. And when I started, I was the only woman in many rooms. But I never really thought about diversity or focused on being the only woman or the minority. We were taught to just show up, work really, really hard, and add value wherever you go. But when I was writing my book, The AI Factor, And the chapter on ethical and responsible AI, it really dawned on me that if we don't do something about it, these algorithms will have a lot more power to start exponentially enhancing these biases. It becomes really critical that we all come together, and that's what the whole reason I started the organization called WILDA, Women Leaders, and now World Leaders in Data and AI.
Thanks, guys. Asha picked up responsible AI, while in some form we were all talking about responsible AI, but just also picking up the other aspects of responsible AI. We at Innominds have this offering by the name Responsible AI, which ensures that anything that we build or deploy is fair, transparent, and trustworthy. And while we were thinking of this, even before I had joined, there was work that was happening on this front. And I sort of thought that, by now, because you hear so much about AI around you, you just start to believe that maybe everyone around you is aware of something like this, and they are already implementing this in their systems or companies. But to my surprise, more and more people that I talk to, even some very large enterprises, I have started to realize that it's not that easy. It's not that companies don't want to do that. It's not that easy. There are certain frameworks that you have to go through. There are regular audits that one needs to follow, and there are guidelines that you have to follow, etc. Now, coming to on AI governance, I also want to pick your brains around, and then also we see that regulators are pushing for more stricter ethical guidelines. So I want to pick your brains around how do you see, the balance between, let's say, innovation and regulation playing out? Do you think companies are doing enough to self-regulate, or governments or authorities should step in more aggressively? Well, this is a question which any one of you would like to skip. I'm okay with that. But if you would like to share your thoughts around this. Jeshri, I will start with you again.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, I mean, being in the financial industry, I can definitely talk about why is regulation very important, right? Every single piece of data that we have should be regulated. So, balancing the innovation and regulation, of course, is a bigger challenge that everybody is facing. It has the potential to revolutionize every industry, but without proper safeguards, it can reinforce biases, right? That's what we have seen. We have had examples. So Anju spoke about this Amazon's hiring algorithm, which actually had right favoring male candidates just because it was actually trained on that type of data. And we have had another example, Apple's credit card algorithm, which reportedly offered lower credit limit to women of the same or similar profile, right? Like, these are not something that we can do an afterthought. It has to be before, right? There is no way that we can do an afterthought. Many companies are definitely doing these fairness audits. To be honest, right? I being in this financial industry, I can talk about that. Definitely, we are also taking some initiatives, but even though if there are self-regulations that companies are taking, there should be a need for a framework, right, which encourages this responsible AI development without slowing down the innovation. So now it's a very important fact, right, finding the right balance. Too little of the regulation, it can let the biases to continue. But if we are going too tighter in the regulations, then it can hinder the progress. So we'll have to find that right balance. That is what is very important. And it's not just following the rules and regulations per se, it's more about taking responsibility. You need to, every company has to put all of this fairness, transparency on their forefront before taking wider steps on this AI systems. That's my opinion. There are some regulations coming in. Use AI Act, for example, they've just introduced a risk-based regulation, and yeah, that's one example I could find. But I mean, the companies are taking steps, so it has to start from their side too.
I agree. Sneha?
Yeah, I think, Jayshree covered a few of the things, but I think one different, unique perspective is being an industry leader in AI, right? It becomes, even for companies like NVIDIA, we're taking responsibility to kind of not work in silos because every company can, proclaimly, like they proclaim that, they could self-regulate, but they are working with a lot of other organizations. In fact, we have, if you've heard of sovereign AI, right? It's become a global imperative for like, just governments to invest and, reshape different markets. So every country are actually investing in sovereign AI where they have a set of engineers, developing foundation models, and that helps kind of preserve their indigenous culture, language, all of that. So that's one aspect. But also,
Yeah.
I think encouraging, innovation, while keeping AI systems transparent and accountable is the only way to do this is to kind of have a combined effort that serves like, that kind of, helps you collaborate with one another. There are a lot of organizations like AI for Good, and there are a lot of, like clean, ethical AI initiatives that are
Framework.
driven by NVIDIA, and even across, organizations. So I would urge you to kind of volunteer. I think I've been volunteering with AI for Good and a couple of other organizations, but it's a very important, aspect, moving forward in AI.
It is. I agree. Yeah. Jessica?
Hi, yes, I think that there's a way to not only rely on some of these organizations or rely on regulation, but to have some external validation for the regulatory frameworks. And I think that you can actually use technology itself to help solve this. So you can actually train AI models to constantly check these compliance frameworks and be continuing to update with perhaps for quite some time a human in the loop to verify. But I do think that there are also tech solutions, and we can use AI to help solve the AI challenge and this seeming disparity between innovation and regulation. I think there's a way to actually accelerate that.
Yes, and I'm seeing more and more use of technology even on regulate on the regulation side as well. Manisha?
And just one thing to
Yeah, sorry.
add to Jessica's point is, she's absolutely right. So I think we were in the era of generative AI, and now we're in
Yes.
the era of agentic AI. So if you've actually worked on ChatGPT, it takes time to think. And I think I was talking about this earlier, right? You don't get responses because they're able to reason and think for you. So
Yes.
we're in the agentic era, and of course, I think like you'll see more agentic AI kind of solving for
Absolutely.
problems like this themselves. So just wanted to add that to the thought which Jessica brought up.
No. That's an important thought, and there was. I'm not sure if this may take slightly longer, but there was a session from Gartner that mentioned about using AI to also make companies ready for AI, right? So you keep hearing from a lot of companies that we feel we are not ready, but that's absolutely the time for you to start using this technology to ensure that you are ready. And then similarly on regulations and everything else, you have to start taking help of technology rather feeling that you may be ready or not. Now, Manisha.
Yes. So with healthcare, obviously similar to Jayshree with financial sector, healthcare is very highly regulated. Any technology that's introduced has to go through some level of regulatory clearance. And with regards to AI, this is really an uncharted area for the regulatory bodies. They're educating themselves right now. I think it's really important that they understand this concern with AI bias as they put regulations in place. Also, understanding the value of the individual AI. So what is the AI doing? If it's something that is more administrative support, maybe the requirement for regulation is lower versus something that is providing some kind of clinical diagnosis, then obviously you want to have a high bar with regards to the regulations that are required. But there is going to be, I think, a little bit of this struggle between innovation and regulation because you don't want to overregulate, but you do need to ensure that there's patient safety at the end of the day. So this is still going to be, I think, an ongoing topic for quite some time in the healthcare space.
Absolutely. Shweta?
Well, in the academic space, I think regulation is more about where do we draw the line between plagiarism and your innovation. So I think that's the stand universities are taking. And as I said, different departments, different colleges have different approaches to it. Some look upon it as a tool that helps, say, for instance, I have had professors who would be like, I have a Mexican student in my class, amazing ideas, comes up with the most novel storyline when I ask her to write an essay, but she needs help with polishing her language. And the professor does not see any harm in allowing an AI tool to have her polish her language, though her ideas are absolutely authentic and her own. Yes. And then on the other hand, there may be students who are just giving a generative AI a prompt and producing whatever the generative AI generated on that prompt. So I think in the academic side, we are still trying to figure out that line and helping students understand, where to draw the line, basically.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's really all about building trustworthy AI that benefits everyone, right? That's the crux of it. So while we'll talk about regulations, we talk about governments acting proactively, not acting enough, or making it for everyone or not. But till the time we are ensuring that AI benefits everyone, I guess we are in check and everyone will have to play their role in it. I'm now getting Strinkers to wrap this up. But before we wrap it up, I would like to open the bridge for everyone to ask their questions. And you can direct your questions on the chat here. I'll pick this up. And do let me know if you have a specific preference on who to answer this, or I will just open it for the group for anyone to pick that up. Okay, I see one question. It's from Luna Mukherjee. We are the recruitment partners of IT sector. Our clients emphasize on diversity hiring, but many times we face challenges in delivery. At such times, with mapping data from us, our clients need to change the criteria of the position and make it open to all. I guess we are hinting towards lack of, I guess what we're hinting through is lack of profiles, from women's. Is that what we trying to say, Luna? I guess, yes, that's what it is. Yeah. And that's exactly the question that we were talking, Luna, right? That how do we bring in more and more women into these roles so that it isn't really women aren't really the underrepresented section in this in this whole ecosystem of AI. We have another question. And I just answered that on everyone's behalf. I'm sorry. The next question is, mentorship is often highlighted as a critical factor in career growth. What mentorship initiatives have you seen work well in supporting women in AI? Anyone would like, hey, Jessica, yes, go ahead.
I'd be delighted. So thank you, Anju. The in shameless plug here, I suppose. In 2017, I started a corporate social responsibility campaign called the One Woman Challenge that I've continued to this day, and so have many of my colleagues, including many of my male colleagues. And the idea is really simple. It's called the One Woman Challenge, and it's help one woman in some way with a mentorship session, with an introduction, with a coffee, with a bit of career nudge or help in some way. And I think that it's really important to think about these things as not having to start some big giant thing or involve some big giant initiative, but just everybody commit to help one woman in some way, and not only women helping other women.
Exactly.
And I also
And
want to
you,
address, Saket, and I'll give you a very different side of the coin.
yes,
National Science Foundation used to fund, and I'm not sure how it's going to look in the coming years, used to fund initiatives. And I was on the PI on one such initiative where we brought in high schoolers from underprivileged high school, middle schools for a 6-week long summer program to the university, showed them around different engineering labs. At the end of 6 weeks, had them do projects, etc. The whole team was nurtured by not just me, but my female and male graduate students, a lot of them international.
yes,
And then at the end of it, these students were asked to do a presentation on, if you were to grow up and if you were become a neuroengineer, neuroscientist, how would you contribute to society? 6 weeks ago, these students came in not knowing what neuroengineering meant. And in the 6 weeks duration of staying in a university lab, campus, atmosphere, the presentations they came up with were just stellar. And the number of recommendation letters I have written for these students. So this was, I did it for 7 years, and I still do, I'm continuing on this, though the grant has ended. The recommendation letters that I wrote for many of these kids when they applied to college seeking engineering degree was amazing. And they have come from backgrounds where nobody in their families or friends or peer group had anything to do with STEM. So when you talk about mentorship, again, I would want to reemphasize the intervention needs to start really early on, just so that we are shaping mindsets. And I'm not at all advocating that every woman needs to be an engineer, but the ones who have the talent oftentimes do not even recognize or realize that they really can contribute to this field of study.
yes.
So an intervention and a mentorship early on in life can be very, very helpful.
And important, yeah, absolutely. We have another question. I guess this is for Manisha, and then Sanjeev, I'll come to your question as well. How do we balance AI-driven automation with the need for human oversight in medical decision making?
Great question, and thank you for that. Our approach and philosophy at Active Surgical is to have AI be a tool to help support surgeons in their decision making, not to replace their decision making. So what I like to use as I think a very familiar analogy is what we see today in sort of smart vehicle technology. And if you think about your car, and you have a side mirror and you see the blinking light to let you know there's a car in your blind spot, or you have a rear view camera that has the red and green and yellow lines to help you guide the car. That is information that you're getting from the technology. It is not actually driving the car for you. So what we are using AI for is very similar in when a surgeon is operating, they will see on their monitor screen highlighting of critical structures or features of the anatomy to help them navigate through the procedure more quickly, or to identify key landmarks in complex anatomy, just to help ensure efficiency and safety throughout the procedure. So this is something that helps assist them. It doesn't actually make the decisions or do the surgery for them.
And also, right, in such critical environments, it can reduce human errors to some extent.
Yeah, so I also, similar to the driving analogy, as a driver, you think about that cognitive burden of driving. Having that technology lowers that burden for you, and it makes you less fatigued. It takes less mental strain. That's really the idea of AI in the support of the surgeon.
Absolutely. Sanjeev, now coming to your question, with the current US administration's push to cancel most, if not all, DEI programs, how do you see it impacting the recruitment and engagement of women in tech? Anyone would like to pick that up?
So I guess I can answer in the fact that I think it's probably too early to know what the impact's going to be. I do think there is a lot of discussion about some of the directives and how we can maintain some level of commitment without sort of violating some of the guidelines and regulations that we have to follow. But I think the short answer is we don't know yet, but I think it is truly something we have to monitor and be concerned about.
Yes. Okay, I guess no more questions. So, as we wrap up today's discussion, one thing is clear: AI is only as good as people building it, right? A huge thank you to our incredible panelists for sharing their insights, and all of you who have joined today and being part of this important conversation. I strongly would urge everyone to take these discussions beyond today and continue to drive real change in how AI is built and used. Together, we can create a future where AI truly works for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anju. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.